So imagine this. You've just poured $100 million into expanding into a brand new market. But then, just 2 years later, you're pulling out with pretty much nothing to show for it. It's a nightmare scenario, but you know what? It happens all the time in global business. So, how do you make sure you don't become just another one of those cautionary tales? Well, that's exactly what the EMARGE framework is for. It's a system designed to help you see past the hype and make much smarter bets on where to grow.
All right, first things first. We have to talk about the single biggest and most expensive mistake companies make when they decide to go global. We like to call it the GDP fantasy. You've seen this before, right? You look at a chart and you see soaring GDP, a massive population, and you think, wow, we have to be there. But that beautiful, smooth line on the chart, it hides a messy reality. It hides the operational quicksand. We're talking about regulations that change overnight, supply chains you can't rely on, or a talent pool that looks great on paper but just doesn't have the skills you actually need. And this, right here, is the fatal error, confusing a market that looks attractive with one that is actually winnable. They are not the same thing.
This quote just nails it. Everyone gets excited about the TAM, the total addressable market. It's this huge, tempting number. But what gets ignored is the real tax of doing business there. You know, all the hidden costs, the bureaucratic headaches, the logistical nightmares. Ignoring that tax is exactly how these promising ventures end up sinking.
Okay, so how do we avoid falling into that trap? Well, the eMERGE framework starts by drawing a really critical line in the sand. It's a distinction that completely changes how you look at the problem.
See, success isn't just one thing. It's two separate variables. The first one is opportunity. That's the one that gets all the attention. It's the big question. Can we make money here? But the second one, viability, is arguably even more important. It asks a different question. Can we survive here? It's about whether your business can actually handle the shocks and the stress that are guaranteed to come when you're operating in a new place.
This is so important, let's just hammer it home. Opportunity is all about the size of the prize, the potential revenue, the profit, all the good stuff. But viability, that's about your ability to actually execute. Can your operations deal with the local challenges? Will your business model even work with their rules? Can you handle the day-to-day friction of that market? Honestly, most companies fail because they get completely seduced by the opportunity, only to get crushed by their lack of viability.
So, to make sure we look at both sides of that equation, the framework is built on a really clear 6-pillar system. Let's walk through it.
It breaks down like this. The first 3 pillars, we're talking earnings pool, moat fit, and route to market, all roll up into your opportunity score. Then the next 3, enabling environment, ground game, and evolution and exit, they determine your viability score. It's a really structured way to take a messy, complex reality and turn it into a clear picture.
First up, the earnings pool. Think of this as the ultimate reality check against that GDP fantasy we talked about. It forces you to cut through the noise and ask, who actually pays for this? How much will they pay, and why? Forget the macro numbers. Is there real, durable demand for what you are selling at a price that actually works for your business?
Next, we have moat fit. Now, it's really easy to just assume your global brand is some kind of killer advantage, but this pillar makes you get brutally honest. Do you really have an unfair advantage, like high switching costs for customers or genuine network effects that are hard to copy? Because I guarantee you, there are agile local competitors who are faster, cheaper, and way better connected, and they will test that advantage from day one.
Pillar 3, route to market, points out a classic mistake. So many companies think they're just launching a product, but what they're really doing is trying to solve a super complex distribution puzzle. It's not enough to have a great product. You have to figure out if you can actually get it to your customers efficiently, and, this is a big one, if you can actually get paid for it reliably.
Okay, now we're shifting over to the viability side of things, starting with the enabling environment. This is all about the gap between the official rules, the law on paper, and how things actually get done, the law in practice. Is the government stable or totally unpredictable? Can you actually enforce a contract in court? This is where all the hidden nasty risks are lurking.
Then you've got the ground game. And this is where a great strategy often goes to die. This is all about the nuts and bolts. Can you navigate the local logistics? Can you actually hire the people you need? Can you run your operations without breaking some obscure rule and ending up in the headlines? This is the gut check of day-to-day execution.
And the final pillar, evolution and exit, tackles something most expansion plans just forget. You know, getting into a new market is the easy part. Getting out can be incredibly painful and expensive.
This pillar forces you to plan your escape route from day one. What are your stop rules? What's the trigger that makes you say, okay, we're pulling the plug? A good entry strategy has to include a good exit strategy, period.
So we have our 6 pillars. They give us a ton of great information. But how do you take all of that insight and turn it into a clear go or no-go decision? That is where the scoring system comes in.
And it's important to understand this is not just a simple checklist. The whole system is designed to do one thing really well: surface uncertainty. The pillars are just the inputs that feed into a scoring engine. That engine then helps you make a clear decision. It's all about managing what you don't know.
And this scorecard is the key. It is designed to force total honesty. For each pillar, you give it a raw score, but then, and here's the magic, you multiply it by a confidence factor. If your knowledge is based on hard, verified data, that's great. But if it's based on a conversation you had, or worse, just a gut feeling, your score gets penalized immediately. It completely stops people from scoring on vibes and makes them face up to what they don't really know.
Those final confidence-adjusted scores for opportunity and viability then get plotted right onto this decision map. And it gives you 4 super clear strategic options. High on both? That's an easy invest. Low on both? That's a clear no. But the most interesting quadrant is usually the bottom right, optionality mode. This is where you have high opportunity but low viability. It's where most ambitious projects start, and the strategy is clear. Don't go all in. Find a local partner, run some small tests, and buy down that risk.
Okay, so let's take a look at how this framework goes from being a one-time analysis to a living, breathing management tool out in the real world.
Here is a perfect real-world example. We had a B2B SaaS company eyeing Indonesia. The earnings pool looked fantastic, huge opportunity, but the enabling environment scored really low because nobody was sure how new data laws were going to play out. So what was the verdict? Not a no, it was optionality mode. And the action? Launch a small pilot program with a local partner to learn more without taking a massive financial risk. It's just a smarter, staged way to enter a market.
And the framework doesn't just stop after that first decision. It gets built right into the company's DNA. It becomes a gated process. You start with a proposal, you run a pilot, and if you decide to scale up, those scores and tripwires get reviewed every single month. It's a living system, not a static report that sits on a shelf.
And that brings us to the tripwire system. Because let's be honest, conditions in these markets can change overnight. So before you even go in, you agree on specific triggers. Things like if the currency devalues by more than 15%, or if this new data law gets passed. If one of those tripwires gets hit, it automatically triggers a pre-planned response. It means you can react at the speed of the market, not at the speed of your next quarterly board meeting.
And all of this really boils down to the core philosophy of the entire Emerge framework, which is this: when your uncertainty is high, don't just make a bigger bet or walk away. The right move is to test. Run small, smart experiments that turn your guesses and assumptions into actual facts.
Which leaves us with this final, powerful thought. At the end of the day, the goal of a system like Emerge is really simple. It's about finding and killing the weak ideas cheaply before they become expensive disasters. That way, you can pour all your resources into scaling the true winners with total confidence.